If I would have told you 16 weeks ago that the Panthers were the worst team in the NFL after week 14, would you believe me? Yeah, you probably would have. So while that might not be surprising, there are 31 other NFL teams, and what are we gonna do if we don't put them against each other and power rank them? It's what sports pundits do, baby. Let's take a look at the board. Today we are working with tiers of juggernauts, wannabes. Then we've got the guys who are somehow actually kinda good. Teams that just aren't good enough. Teams that are winning when they shouldn't be. And then, of course, these guys stink! And then last but not least, our bottom tier, the teams that should probably be relegated to college football.
So let's go ahead and get things started with the Arizona Cardinals. Before Kyler Murray got hurt, I thought it was semi-acceptable. Still a professional football team, but yeah, you're missing K1. He comes back. They still haven't really figured things out. Yes, they did get that win against the Steelers, so they're not going to be relegated, but I do think that they still just stink. I mean, it's a pretty simple deal here. They're just not very good at football. Next up is my favorite division, the NFC South. I think for now, I'm going to put them in the winning when they shouldn't be. Not that they're winning that often, but they are winning more times than what they should be. So next up, Baltimore Ravens. And in my last video where I graded every single week 14 performance, I'll link it above, I said the Ravens needed to put together a better defensive effort to get into that upper tier. However, in this video, I am going to put them in the juggernauts category solely because I think they are the best AFC team out there. Speaking of AFC teams, the Buffalo Bills are going to go into this wannabe juggernauts. I think they're a very good team. I think they're very capable of beating anyone, but they dug themselves into a hole, and I don't know if they're going to be able to make the playoffs or not. If they do, you're probably not going to want to play them. Not to say that they are one of the best teams in the league. Obviously, they're not. And next up, we have the Carolina Panthers. I do feel like this is a team that 5 years ago, when we were asking, oh, could the Crimson Tide, the national champions, beat the Detroit Lions? This is one of those teams. That's where they belong. They belong in that relegation category. Hopefully they can get things turned around and Bryce Young is their guy, but as of right now, they do not look good at all. Bears. These guys won last week. I'm not sure if it was more of a Detroit Lions loss or a Bears win. Regardless, the win column goes up by 1 for the Bears, and they really shouldn't be winning games right now. Great team morale win, yes. For the fans out there, I want to know how you guys feel about the Bears' current situation. Are you guys moving on from Justin Fields? Do you want to keep him? Do you want to keep losing games? Are you trying to make a push? The Bears situation is certainly a unique one. And speaking of unique situations, the Bengals are up next. And after Joe Burrow went down, you guys know, I thought they were just going to be complete garbage. They have actually looked pretty solid. So somehow they're actually kind of good. Jake Browning is showing up for them in games. This is probably the last week that I'm going to act surprised when Jake Browning plays well. They could make a push for the playoffs, and who knows, maybe pull out a wild card win. Speaking of teams that I really did not expect to be very good after their quarterback went down, the Browns. When Deshaun Watson went down, it's not that I thought he was that good, but you lose all the chemistry you've built up over the offseason. But Joe Flacco has come in and looks really good in these last 2 games. They didn't beat the Rams, but last week they got the win. I think these guys are somehow actually kind of good. It'd be kind of cool for Joe Flacco to get a win with the Browns in the playoffs. Next up, Cowboys. This is a pretty easy juggernauts call. I don't think a lot of people expected this after the first couple weeks, but Dak has since learned the offensive system. They're getting the ball to ceedee. They're utilizing their weapons quite well. And after their beatdown on the Eagles, it's between them and the 49ers in the NFC right now. Broncos, pretty clearly somehow actually good. After what we saw from them last year, no one expected them to do anything. They're ripping off wins at an unprecedented rate. And hey, they might actually take the AFC West. That would be pretty cool. Detroit Lions. These guys, they're wannabe juggernauts, and I actually feel like that's almost a little bit too high for them. I really don't think they're that good of a team, but they're going to win the NFC North. They're going to get in. They need to turn that ship around because I think they have the potential to be very good, but they are not there yet. This Green Bay team just lost to the Giants last night. They are not good enough. Maybe they squeak in, sure. But as of right now, in the current picture of the NFL, they are definitely not even close to playoff material. All right, so the Texans are a tough team because I think before all their injuries, they were almost in the wannabe juggernauts. They really were on a roll. It was pretty cool. And then they lose Nico Collins, Tank Dell, CJ Stroud is in concussion protocol. They are probably going to go in the not good enough category for me right now. I think they have the potential to be that somehow actually kind of good, but they've got a lot of obstacles as far as weapons go to overcome to get into that category. The Colts, however, are somehow actually kind of good. This is a weird one. They did lose this last week, but Jonathan Taylor was out. He's obviously one of the best players in the league, and who knows, maybe they pull out an AFC South title. Speaking of AFC South teams, the Jaguars. These guys right now I have in my not good enough category. And honestly, it's largely because of their loss to the Browns. Letting them hang 31 on their heads is not a good look. Sure, they could turn things around. I know that Trevor Lawrence had a high ankle sprain just a few days before that game, but yeah, their defense needs to shape up for sure. The Chiefs. Crazy to put them in the wannabe juggernauts category, but they're just not a juggernaut this year. Sure, they'll get to the playoffs, but I really don't even know if they're going to get to the conference championship at this point. Way too many wide receiver issues. That is by far their biggest thing that they have to get fixed. But who knows? We've seen crazier comebacks. Speaking of comebacks, a team that is incapable of completing one, the Chargers. These guys stink. I know everyone wants Staley out of there, but until he's gone, I just can't put this team any higher. However, the Rams do look kind of solid. I'm going to put them in the somehow actually kind of good. And I think it's just because of that stretch where things did not look great for them. If the Rams get in, I don't know how far they'll go. I really don't. But they are a solid team and they are capable of getting there. Raiders, however, they're not. They stink. Okay, I'm sorry. Sure, they held the Vikings to 3, but they couldn't get any points of their own. They've lost their last 3, and things just aren't looking bright in Las Vegas. Next up, the Dolphins. Shout out Ghost of Bread. Huge Tyreek Hill fan. However, is Tyreek Hill enough to get the Dolphins to the next level? It doesn't appear so. They lost last night to the Titans, bro. They were up 14 with under 3 minutes to go. That was an insane game, and maybe it was an anomaly, but they haven't looked good against good teams all year. Maybe those holes are starting to get a little bit bigger. I'm putting them in the wannabe juggernauts because I think they have the star power to get to that level. But honestly, they almost deserve to skip this third tier and just go straight into not good enough. I really don't know if that team can get it done. Next up is the Vikings, and they're going to go in the somehow actually kind of good category. They're winning games right now, and they're down Justin Jefferson and Kirk Cousins. I don't think they're good enough to make a deep playoff run, maybe even a playoff run at all. But I think they're just earning this because they're a lot better than I thought they would be. Maybe it's bias, I don't know. Okay, the Patriots, this one's a pretty easy one. We won this week. I don't know why. We should not be winning. We need to stop doing that. Regardless, drag and drop. We're done. On to the Saints. I'm going to put every NFC South team in the same category. So they're going in the winning when they shouldn't be. But honestly, at the end of this, maybe I move that whole division around. Next up, we have the Giants. They beat the Packers last night. They're winning when they shouldn't be. Maybe looking at the playoff picture, they can make that push, but I don't think they're a good enough team to go that far anyway. So if they were to get in, it would be a quick collapse. I just feel like the Giants might be better off going for a high draft pick. Not that I'm condoning tanking, except for the Patriots. But next up, a fellow New York team in the Jets. They are also winning when they shouldn't be. They looked really good in their win against the Texans, I won't lie, but why are they winning games? Aaron Rodgers isn't going to come back. They're not going to make the playoffs. Miami's too far out ahead in the division. Weird situation going on in that facility for sure. Next up, we've got the Eagles, and I think you all know where these guys are going to go. That's right. Psych. Wannabes. These guys, I'm sorry, right now they have way too many holes. They are a very good team. They can turn it around. Yes, they were on the road against the Niners and then the Cowboys back-to-back weeks. That's a tough schedule, but I feel like those really good teams would be able to get it done. They're not going to go in the juggernauts category yet, but they definitely could easily work their way up there. Okay, as for the Steelers, attention, this one could be controversial. They're gonna go in the stink category. I'm sorry. You can't lose back-to-back times to 10 lost teams and expect to not be in the stink category. That one's pretty cut and dry. Now, the Seahawks. This one is tough, and I toyed around with where to put them, but I think this is a decent spot for them. I think we've seen that they don't have what it takes against those upper level teams. San Francisco, however, is one of those teams. Yeah, they go in the juggernauts category. Pretty simple. Low-key, a Cowboys 49ers NFC championship would actually be insane because they might be the two best teams in football right now. And back down to teams that are not the best in the NFL right now. The Buccaneers, they're going with the NFC South right now. We're going to reevaluate this in a minute. Next up, the Titans. I did not expect them to go in this category, but they're winning when they shouldn't be. Now, you're probably thinking they're going to try to win the AFC South. Looking at their draft position, they would be much better off just cutting their losses, moving forward, getting a decent draft pick, and going into next year. And last but not least, Washington, I think they just stink, and not because of their poop pipes. They're just not that good at football. They don't need to be relegated, and they're not really winning, so they're not going to be in the winning category. I think they're pretty solid stinky. All right, now that I'm looking at this, I think I'm going to put the NFC South in the not good enough category, simply because I do appreciate them trying to win their division title. At least the attempt is there, but clearly none of them making it past the first round of the playoffs. All right, let me know if your team landed where you thought it would. And if you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe. We're pushing for that 1,000 mark. And I will see you guys tomorrow when we take a closer look at the NFL playoffs.